Yeah, this is Thunder Underground. Hey everybody, this is Frank Hannon, lead guitarist of Tesla, and this is Thunder Underground.
Welcome to episode 436 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent here as always, and as you heard right there in that opening, the mighty Frank Hannon is back on the podcast for the 5th time. That's right. 5 times now that Frank Hannon's been on this podcast. I'm very happy to be able to say that, with Tesla being one of my all-time favorite bands, Frank Hannon being one of my favorite guitarists. So very cool to get him back on here once again to talk about his brand new album, Reflections, that just came out a couple weeks ago. He's also got lots of other things to talk about. We'll jump into that here very shortly. But before we do, I need to let you know who sponsors this podcast. DEB Concerts, a concert promoter based in the Tulsa area who has continually brought great concerts to Tulsa, and they've also booked the DEB concert stage at Rocklahoma for the last several years as well. They booked the pre-party at Rocklahoma, and like I said, they booked shows in downtown Tulsa throughout the years. They've been doing this for a long time now. Tons of great acts. This year at Rocklahoma featured Orianthi, Van Halen, Sebastian Bach, Lita Ford, Mike Tramp, Snakebite Whiskey, Dime Store Riot, so many other great ones on this stage. And Doug and DEB Concerts continues to bring great music to the Oklahoma area. So hit up debconcerts.com, follow them on the socials so you don't miss upcoming info. And here at Thunder Underground, of course, I'll let you know every time a concert's coming as well. We've also got Sunset Tattoo, a tattoo shop located in Midtown Tulsa. They're state licensed, they're Native American owned, and they have a female artist on staff full time. 30 plus years of experience from Jake and his crew over there at Sunset Tattoo. I've had work done by Jake more than once. I'm super happy with everything that he's done for me, and I know many other people that have had work done at Sunset Tattoo. That also includes many artists from some bands you love, I promise you that, because Jake has tattooed a lot of rock and metal artists throughout the years as well. So hit up Sunset Tattoo on their socials. It's Sunset Tattoo Tulsa on both Facebook and Instagram. There's tons of photos on there so you can see all their work, see what they specialize in. If you've got an idea that you need help bringing to life, they can obviously help you with that. Send them a message, give them a call to set up a consultation time. They also accept walk-ins. They have specials running all the time, so follow them on those socials so you don't miss that, and let them know you heard about them right here on Thunder Underground. All right, like I mentioned right there at the beginning, Frank Hannon just released a brand new solo album. The album is called Reflections. It's been out probably about 3 weeks now. There's a vinyl release as well that Frank talks about in the interview coming up that you can order. They did a small run of. He said it's going to be a one-time run on vinyl, so grab that now if you are into vinyl. But if not, you can get this thing, of course, on all the digital outlets. So check it out wherever you get a chance. It's really cool. It's an instrumental, mainly acoustic-based album. The cool calling card to this thing is he recorded this entire album on his iPhone, and he did it entirely in first takes. That's something, of course, that we're about to talk about here in this interview as well. But it shows, his creativity, his musicianship, how great he is, all that. You can hear that throughout this album. If you're a fan of Tesla, and that's strictly kind of where your music tastes lie, in the hard rock and, heavier side of rock, this might be off your radar, but, it's still something to check out because it's just beautiful music. And that's what Frank's always been about in his solo outings throughout the years with Frank Hannon Band. He's released a lot of different styles of stuff, whether it be hard rock, whether it be laid back, whether it be southern rock. He covers the bases, and he talks about that here as well in this interview. And yeah, if that's stuff that you've missed throughout the years, definitely give that stuff check that stuff out for sure. One thing I always talk about every time I've had Frank on or talked about Tesla or Frank in the past on this podcast, always mention Frank Hannon Band, the 6-String Soldiers album that came out now about probably 15 years ago. It was around 2010, 2012. Such a great album with a lot of guests on it. That also included Jeffrey Sandoval on vocals. Such a fantastic rock album that I just implore everybody to check out. And outside of, having Frank on here now 5 times, Jeffrey Sandoval's been on here a couple times in the past. Mike Ariza, who was a part of that version of Frank Hannon Band as well. And then, of course, has done a lot of music with Jeffrey Sandoval since, has been on this podcast now 4 or 5 times himself. He's got a great new band called The Fa that has been on here about a year ago, as recent as a year ago. So definitely check out what both of them have been up to as well. Yeah, there's a little tangent for you. But the same thing with Tesla. If Tesla is a band that you're, just kind of a fan of because you love all those great hit songs, but you didn't delve too deep into everything else, and you're not aware of the fact that Tesla has released a lot of great music this century, the 21st century, starting with Into the Now, was kind of about the time I think that the albums were coming out that a lot of people aren't as much as aware of as they are those first 4 albums. But Into the Now, Forevermore, Shock, Simplicity, all these albums have great music on them. They just released an EP last year called All About Love that had a couple new songs on it, some different versions of those. Of course, there's the Reel to Reel albums. There's 2 of those. They came out, I believe that was around 2007, 2008. And both those are, full of cover songs, mainly in the, classic rock and southern rock veins. But so much, there's even, like we talk about in this coming up, there's Black Sabbath cover with War Pigs, just as well as there is, all the stuff you would expect from Tesla, like covers of Aerosmith and the Allman Brothers and Zeppelin, Peter Frampton, Uriah Heep, everything that you would expect, it's there. And Tesla does a great freaking job of bringing those songs to life in the world of Tesla. But yeah, back to Frank Hannon specifically, like I mentioned, he has been on this podcast now. This is the 5th time. Like I said, I'm very happy to be able to say that. The first 4 times, one of those times was episode 292, which is the longest episode of the history of this 10 and a half years of this podcast. It was over 3.5 hours long because it included 14 guests, one of which being Frank, of course, because it was an Eddie Van Halen tribute episode. I bring this one up a lot because it's the episode I'm most proud of, just because of that fact of getting 14 unique artists who were inspired by Eddie and talking about it. So it's a fantastic episode to listen to if you're a fan of either A, Frank Hannon, B, Eddie Van Halen, obviously, or just a guitarist or a rock and roll fan in general. I always love whenever, it's always cliche to ask, I think, in an interview, who are your influences if it's not a new artist, because we've heard them talk about this tons of times, throughout the years, if it's an artist, of course, that you follow. But I always love hearing artists talk about what inspired them or who they're a fan of, because you go from, regular response to a question to something where you can just kind of see their fandom, and their love of music coming through just as much as a fan would be when they're talking about themselves. Again, that's why I love, something like that, because you're hearing 14 unique artists across the board, because there was artists from the worlds of like extreme heavy metal, guys like Frank that, from hard rock and from southern rock veins, and then Mark Slaughter was on there. So it's just all kinds of stuff across the board. And I'm doing another episode right now about Ozzy along the same lines. And I'm taking, I talked to Frank about Ozzy in this episode. So that clip will again be on the Ozzy episode that should be out here before the end of this month. And it's going to include members of Halloween, Guns N' Roses, White Lion, Nonpoint. Who else? There's a few others that I've had on recently and talked to him about Ozzy. So very cool to, kind of again bring a mix of different styles into that and hear, their fandom of Sabbath and Ozzy and everything. So with all that being said, let's hear what Frank has to say about his brand new album and about Ozzy and about a few other things as well. Here is Frank Hannon. This has a real strong Western and Americana vibe throughout the majority of it. What was it that kind of led you in that direction?
Well, I've always had those elements in my playing. If you listen to Tesla, songs like What You Give and Be a Man and Heaven's Trail, and they always have a bluesy, soulful Americana Western feel to it. Like even What You Give has some cowboy kind of licks in there, and modern day cowboy. Going back to our first album, I grew up, listening to Creedence and a lot of country music. John Denver, Michael Martin Murphey was one of my favorites, when I was a kid. So that influence has always been there. But fast forward to the 80s in high school, and then metal came around. Got influenced by metal. So mixing the metal with Americana together has kind of always been my thing. But with this record that I just did, it's actually on a 12-inch vinyl, which is kind of like a revival too. Having actual vinyl reminds me of being a kid, man, having a record,
Yeah.
That was a big step for me. But I recorded it all on my cell phone, and I was going through a really rough time, and so I was playing my guitar in a way where I was really stumbling on how I was feeling in the notes. And once I discovered how that felt, and it was making some of my friends feel when I played it for them, I decided to pursue it and turn it into a record.
Like, what would you consider this album as a whole kind of like a soundtrack to for you personally? Is it very much like a pinpoint in the time that you were recording it?
Yeah, this all came together after Thanksgiving of last year. In October of last year, my wife and I were in Florida, and we experienced 3 hurricanes in a row. After a hurricane season of turmoil in our personal family life, losing her dad to cancer, and then I had a couple other friends and family members that we were having a lot of trouble with, and people that had passed away, just a lot of pain last year. And so when those hurricanes came and we finally just had to pack our stuff and evacuate in a hurry, there's something about having to decide what's important and what's not when you're looking at all your possessions and you're going, okay, I'm going to leave that TV behind because that doesn't matter if it gets flooded. But gosh, I got to grab that guitar right there because it means a lot to me, but I got to leave that one back. It puts your mind into a trip when you have to evacuate under those kinds of circumstances. Anyway, got home, and for 2 months, I just was kind of healing from all of that and playing my guitar with a lot more emotion. I was tapping into my emotions during that time. Not planning on making a record, but just recording these ideas that I had of chord changes. Like I was stumbling on these minor chord changes. And I would hear those chords in my head, and then when I was playing the guitar, I just started expressing myself with the guitar as like a lead vocal. Because I certainly don't want to sing anymore. I'm tired of trying to sing. It's not any fun, but singing with the guitar really, like if you take a note, and you shake it. I can't sing like that. It doesn't sound as good, It doesn't express how I'm feeling like this does. Telling a story with the guitar was my goal.
I get that. One more time, you've had that one out a bit before the album came out. is it safe to guess that with the slide guitar in there, that this a tribute to Dickie Betts? Like
Well, in a
specifically
way,
that song?
because I was playing Dickie's guitar. Here, I'll show it to you really quick. In fact, Guitar World magazine just did a little story that just came out about this guitar here. It's an SG, and it's if you look at the back of it, it's a Dickie Betts prototype that he let me borrow. He personally told me you can borrow that guitar for as long as you want to, and I'm still borrowing it from him.
Right.
He's up in heaven letting me borrow it still, rock and roll heaven there. But it's a tribute to him in a sense where I used this guitar in the video and played slide. But I've always played slide, and I've always enjoyed honky tonk and slide. You know, like what you know, even Gary Rossington would do, or Dickie does on Crazy Love and up tempo kind of stuff. ZZ Top, Billy Gibbons, the way he plays slide. You know, I love that style of honky tonk slide playing. And so it was a tribute to all of that, really. But Dickie came into the mix by letting me borrow his SG.
I like that, because then it's pretty much you're going to be borrowing that one forever, right? Because it's never going to truly be yours.
That's right. That's right. And Dickie modified this one. If you see, it's got this volume knob right here, which is a master volume for the rhythm pickup. So when you're playing, you can just take your pinky and go like this. It's easy to access right there, and that's a Dickie Betts modification.
Very cool. Like in the press release, you know, it talks about how everything was a first take. And I mean, that's kind of I would assume a topic of any interview you've done, but like, was that something that was decided ahead of time since you were doing kind of a scaled back recording on your phone? Or like, was that just something that happened once you started recording, thinking I'm just going to take the first takes of this? Or how did that process go?
Well, that's the thing, you know, a lot of times when you're writing a song now, it's rare to just write a song in one take of, like, just when you're creating the actual chord changes and writing it. That usually takes days on end to build something. So on average with this album, or in general, I'll start writing some chord changes and fooling around with two parts that fit together, and that'll take me a couple days to kind of suss out in my head. But when it comes down to actually performing it and laying it down as a recorded version, I have found throughout my whole career that on the guitar, usually the first take when you try it, like for example, I knew in the studio when I was doing Love Song that I wanted to start it off like this. I knew I wanted to do that, but after that, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew in my mind that the song went from E minor to B minor, and so when I said, okay, roll the tape, they rolled it. I wasn't even aware they were going to record it. I was practicing it. The first take came out. I just started playing after I did that initial idea. I just started improvising and without thinking. So the whole notion of capturing a first take is when you're playing without really thinking. You're just going for it. And but I had an idea of what the song was already there. So the song wasn't first take. It was mainly the performance of recording the guitar, which any guitarist will tell you that's a jammer. Like Joe Walsh will tell you usually, or Jimmy Page will usually tell you, it's, man, that first or second take. If you don't get it by the second one, take a break, because after 3 tries and 4 tries, you're not capturing that spontaneous energy of the fire, you know. So the other thing with this album is I was recording it with a very limited but great sounding app called Audigo on my phone, and it had limitations. For example, I couldn't punch in or copy and paste like we do on the computer nowadays, so I was forced to play it all the way through without stopping. And when I knew that in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to play this like this is the last time I got. I'm going to play it all the way through without stopping, no cheating. And that was the general approach to the whole recording of everything on the record.
Did you do each part that way? Because like each song kind of has a rhythm, a lead, and a bass line.
Yeah.
So every single part was recorded in one take like that? Okay.
Yes, sir. All the way through from start to finish. Because if I made a mistake, I would have to start all over again. Because on this app, you can't punch in and put it together in pieces. You have to play the whole entire song. So the bass and the rhythm guitar. And one thing I used on the rhythm guitar a lot is a looper pedal. And if you got a second, I'll show you.
Yeah.
Really quick, hold on a sec. This thing right here, it's a looper pedal made by this company called Ditto. TC Electronics makes it. And you can record rhythm guitar with it. You start that button there, you play your rhythm guitar, and then you step on it again, and it'll play it back for you, and then you can play along with it. And I found this thing to be a fantastic pedal tool to help you write songs with. And actually, some of my rhythm guitars on this record, I recorded them on this Ditto, and then I used that to play along with. So the Ditto's actually playing rhythm guitar for me.
Okay.
It's a great thing.
Well, besides, that looper pedal and like you mentioned Dickie Betts guitar and the other guitar you've got in your hand, like how much went into this like gear wise compared to like a normal going into the studio with Tesla or a Frank Hannon band thing? Like how minimal was it?
Very minimal. It was that, and it was this little Fender amp. Let me see if I can switch this camera here. Yeah, over there's a little amp right over there.
Yeah.
And that's it. That little Fender amp and my guitar, and that's it. I didn't use any distortion pedals, nothing. And with Tesla, we've always kept it pretty stripped down as well. Maybe a Marshall half stack or a high watt half stack. We never really relied on overkill when it came to excessive stuff in the studio.
How long did you sit with these songs? Like you mentioned, the recording process going pretty fast, but like how long did you sit with the song once you wrote it and kind of got it where you wanted to before you recorded it? Was it all a quick process?
If you guys want to order the album and get it, it has this inner sleeve. We put a lot into creating this thing. The inner sleeve has stories of each song there, see?
Okay.
And I talk about how it came about. I spent, a day or two on each song, and over the course of November and December, January, off and on through the holidays, and I was posting some of it on my Instagram page and pieces of it, and I was getting reactions from people on Instagram in the comments that they were saying, wow, we knew you're a good guitar player, but this is a little different, and we're hearing something different. And so that really kept encouraging me to keep pursuing this instrumental direction of letting my guitar do the singing. And so I started developing it more and more until we went on the Monsters of Rock cruise. Tesla did, and when I was on that Monsters of Rock cruise, I took my little portable Audigo mic and I recorded the last song of it on the Monsters of Rock cruise, which ended up on the record. It's called Into the Blue, and there's a single version on YouTube of that, and it's one of my favorite songs, but that's the last song I recorded for the record. And then I emailed that Into the Blue to a friend of mine. As soon as I got done with it, I texted it to my friend Pat, who runs East Iris Studio, who manufactures albums in Nashville, Tennessee. And he loved it and invited me to come there, and I put it together in a day, and we pressed the vinyl.
Wow.
So it all kind of fell together just randomly, automatically. I didn't even really plan any of it, really. It just came together, but it creatively sounded so authentic, and it is genuinely from my heart. If this is the last record I ever make, I'll be proud of it, and because it's very real and personal for me, and organically it fell together, and I had some friends reacting to it and giving me support on it, and as far as like encouragement, which is rare. And actually, I had a guitar magazine contact me. Normally, I'm wishing and hoping and trying to contact guitar magazines to see if maybe they'll do something, a story, but this was the opposite. Vintage Guitar Magazine contacted me because they heard the music on my Instagram page and were curious about it because it is so different sounding.
Yeah. Kind of answered it a little with how happy you are with the album and everything, but like, how does your mind work as far as like, are you over analytical of your work? Like to where like 5-10 years you might look back and think, I should have done this different? Or are you good about just letting something sit where it was and knowing that was perfect when I did it?
Well, that's a great question because, yeah, you can always be very analytical and critique. A lot of times we'll critique before we even get started, and don't even ever finish anything. But, yeah, there's some pieces of work that I've thrown out there in at certain times in my life that every album that you make as an artist reflects a period of time that you're going through in your life at that time. And as far as my solo albums, yeah, there's a few that I know I could have done better and was doing it under the guise of being in a hurry and just trying to get something out there for the sake of getting it out there. But I've accepted it all, and it is what it is. And, some of the moments I'm more proud of than others as far as creatively and integrity-wise. But this one here, I'm very proud of it, and I don't think I'm going to look back on this one and have any regrets or wanting to change it in any way. But yes, to answer your question, there's always a few, and then after a lot of time goes by, you listen to it again and go, you know what, that wasn't so bad,
Yeah.
I'm very proud of our early Tesla records, the first album especially. I was being analytical of that one and listening to it, and at the time in the 80s, electric guitar was so over the top with everybody that we were in the market with, like Van Halen and Judas Priest and Scorpions, and they had such great guitar sounds. And at the time, I was only 18 years old when I recorded it, 17 years old writing it. I wanted more. I wanted my guitar to sound more like Van Halen, but now looking back, I'm very proud of how real and raw it is, and the songwriting of songs like Modern Day Cowboy and Changes and the stuff that Tommy and I were doing together. I'm very, very proud of that now looking back,
Now, you mentioned earlier Love Song. Were you saying that the recorded part was actually a first take?
The recorded version that you hear on the guitar solo for Love Song was the first take. I was practicing it, okay, and the engineer pressed record because he's super smart and he knows that it's better to record something than not to. And the producer was sitting in a chair in front of me, and I was just getting ready to practice and show him what I wanted to do, and I just practiced it one take, and I turned around, and the engineer had a big grin on his face because he had hit the record button, and he captured it.
Were there any other parts from throughout your career with Tesla that were like that, first takes, that ended up on record?
Yeah, most of the best parts of the things, especially on the first album, a lot of the my solo and Changes, the solo on the piano intro that I do on Changes, the beginning. Literally, I told the engineer, the same guy I was talking about, Michael Barbiero, that I had an idea for an intro to the song, and I was just going to go noodle around on the piano. And so I sat down out there in this big studio on this grand piano, and I just started noodling around with some E minor scales that I was practicing. And next thing I know, I hear the song start, and the song started, and then I stopped playing, and he gave me the thumbs up from this control room window. So I walked in there. I said, "What?" And he goes, "I got it." And I'm like, "What?" I was just noodling around. But it came out perfect, and it was a perfect one take accident that wasn't even trying to do, and that's on Changes.
Something like that with Changes, or like the acoustic intro to Love Song. Did you guys get any pushback from the record label because of the time period with it, just being, big rock, arena rock kind of?
Well, yeah, there was a period of time where producers and record companies wanted songs that were written in a formula.
Right.
And that formula would usually be intro, verse, chorus, bridge, solo, chorus, out. That was like a formula. And, and we did use that formula, and that's a strong formula for most songs. But some of our ideas were more influenced by the freeform music of the 60s and the 70s, and how bands would put little acoustic interludes like Heart, for example, or Led Zeppelin or the Rolling Stones. And so we did that with Love Song. We did an arrangement that wasn't part of that formula, and we did get a little bit of pushback on there, but we fought for it, and I'm glad. We were lucky that our record company didn't really try to force us to do things we didn't want to do.
Very cool to hear. Well, back to, Reflections. Whenever I first hit play at the beginning, Walk in the Rain, I was reminded instantly of a Quentin Tarantino movie. And
Thank you.
I had that same feeling with This Is Goodbye as well. Is that something you think of, like when you hear one of your songs, or you're writing, like, this would be great in a film? Or am I just kind of, just thinking myself here?
Well, no, you're not alone. I've had a lot of people give me that same feedback, and I wasn't intentionally trying to do that. It just, what you're hearing is just my feeling and my mood that I was in while I was writing and recording those melodies and the sounds of the guitar. So that soundtrack vibe is actually the soundtrack of how I was feeling. But then once it's created and we're listening to it, I've been getting a lot of feedback from people. Hey, man, this sounds like it could have been in this movie, or it could be in a movie or something. And that's a very positive thing. I really appreciate that that remark, or that observation. And so I am currently trying to find the right person that can shop it, or pitch it to some movie producers, and hopefully This Is Goodbye or Walk in the Rain or any one of these songs might be heard in the background of a movie scene someday. I am currently going to pursue that because too many people have said the same thing, including yourself and most of my friends, and reviews that I've gotten on it have said that same thing. So we're going to pursue that. I've got some people in the music industry that are going to help me make that happen.
Very cool. I hope that happens for you. Have you ever
Thanks,
been
buddy.
inspired, like, by a movie to write something, or is it always?
Well, that would be fun.
Yeah.
I know Neil Young did a soundtrack for a Western, and that would be fun, but one step at a time. If one of these songs gets placed in a movie, and then someone hears it and says, hey, we think, you could contribute to another movie we got coming, I would be thrilled to be a part of something like that.
Well, I think besides Walk in the Rain, the song that jumped out to me the most was Sunrise. Talk a
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit about, like, how that one came together and what that one means to you.
Well, that melody there, I recorded it in a hotel room. I was practicing with this little battery amp. That's a battery-powered amp. That's a Jared James Nichols signature model. So I was practicing with that amp and fooling around, and coincidentally, bing, my phone bings, and it's Jared, James Nichols, texting me in all caps how happy he is because he just found out his wife is pregnant and he's going to be a daddy.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, awesome, because I love Jared and Amanda, and they're such great people, and Jared's going to be a great dad. And so after I got that text, and ironically, I was just playing through his little amp, I just started coming up with this melody that reminded me like of a nursery rhyme of them holding their little baby. And it came out really beautiful. It's a really pretty little melody that was inspired by that feeling of love and joy from one of my good friends getting ready to be a father.
Well, as far as like something that always intrigues me with any instrumental song is where the title comes from for an artist. So like, do you like write music and then think in your mind what this should be called? Or do you ever think, you're writing during the sunrise, so that's where that title comes from, or something like, where does the titles come from for you?
Well, that's a great question. Every song is a little different, but on this particular album, for example, Walk in the Rain was recorded and written on a day literally that my wife and I had just taken a stroll through our neighborhood, and all of a sudden it started coming down rain and we got soaking wet. And the vibe of the chords and the feeling of that rhythm came to me while we were having this walk. We were doing these daily walks around our neighborhood to get some exercise. And while we were walking, that melody and that rhythm of that song was echoing in my head. And I couldn't wait to get back home to record it. So while we were walking on our way back home, sure enough, it started raining and we got soaking wet. And that's how that title came about. Other ones will come around like, I don't know, the music will just speak to you and you'll just feel the vibe of it. And a lot of times a song title will come first. Even if you're writing a song with lyrics, you'll come up with a title first and then that'll trigger the concept of the lyrics.
Reflections is a perfect name for this album, obviously. But like, what is it about that song in particular that made you feel like this track should be Reflections and like kind of be the title track of this? It's got that real Spanish vibe to it. It's a great ending to the album.
Hey, thanks, man. Well, that one came later. The title of the album came before the song.
Okay.
I was originally thinking of some different titles for the album because I was doing a melodic approach to the guitar, and melody was the most important aspect of the guitar playing on this. I was going to call it Melody or a handful of melodies. I was going to call the album something to do with melody, but it just didn't fit the vibe of it. And when I started thinking about the album being really the music reflecting how I felt during this period of hard times that we went through and the feeling of healing while I was recording it, the word Reflections just came and really fit the vibe of it to me. Well, when I made the physical product of it and I had the 12 songs and made the album and started offering the pre-orders and everything, it occurred to me that the digital release, which wasn't coming for another couple months, was going to be something that was going to be coming out in September. It needed a bonus track. And it also occurred to me that I needed to add one or two bonus tracks. Well, during that time, there was something on the news. The news today is horrible. I mean, what this country is going through and the craziness is just, it's really difficult to watch. Well, there was a time, I think it was when, one second here. I think it was when that plane crash happened. When those kids were on that plane flying into DC,
Yeah.
and that helicopter collided. And it was just horrible, and I was feeling really horrible. And there were some other things that happened in the news. I was just sitting there, and I turned the TV, I muted the TV. The news was on. Sorry, I dropped my pick.
Oh, good.
The news was on, and that horrible plane crash had happened, and there was some other stuff that was going on. And I muted the television, and I was just feeling these feelings, and I stumbled on these chords here. And those chords were just like making me just contemplate. I had a feeling of like just contemplating like why and what the fuck is going on? Why is this shit happening? That's how these chords sound to me. So I recorded it, and I realized, well, hey, I don't have a title track for this record, and what am I doing with those chords? I'm reflecting. And I thought, there's the title. I was trying to think of a title for it, like why or what the fuck.
Right.
But then I thought, Reflections fits the sound of that music. And so that became the bonus track for the digital release. I recorded it on my nylon string because it just fits the sound of those chords, and that's how that came about.
I feel like there's that slight Spanish vibe. Am I off base on that? Like, where does that come from for you?
Well, classical guitar and Spanish guitar and Latin influences have been a part of my growing up.
Okay.
I was raised in a Mexican family from the age of 6 years old to 16 years old. For 10 years, my stepdad was a Mexican guy named Gabriel Martinez. And so that culture is in my blood. And my grandpa took me to hear Carlos Montoya at the community center when I was, 9 years old. And classical guitar is something that I love. And so, you're definitely hearing that influence. Plus, recording on a nylon string guitar instantly sounds like classical Spanish guitar. And so that's what you're hearing there, bud.
Okay. Well, we mentioned, Dickie Betts earlier, and, several years ago, like it's probably 7 or 8 years ago now, you covered Blue Sky. A lot of times whenever, like, an artist covers something, you might hear something later, like what the original writer or composer or performer thought of it. You obviously were in a position where you could instantly hear. So, like, what kind of feedback did you get from him over that?
Yeah, I was doing a full album of covers at that time. It's called From One Place to Another.
Yeah.
And I was recording it with a mobile little digital Tascam 8-track. And Blue Sky, I had done my own version of it with a banjo, and I experimented with it. And one of the things that I changed in the song Blue Sky is the lyric where Dickie says, good old Sunday morning, bells are ringing everywhere, going to Carolina, and it won't be long till I'm there. And I changed it to going to California, it won't be long and I'll be there. So I changed it from Carolina to California. And I wanted to make sure that Dickie was okay that I did that, and make sure that he thought the song sounded good and didn't suck. I wanted to make him proud. So I played it for him, and we were sitting on the couch, and he listened to it, and he really liked it. He loved the banjo, because I had put a little banjo on there and a piano. And I asked him, "Is it okay with you if I change it from Carolina to California?" And he looks at me and goes, "Well, that's the truth, ain't it?" And I said, "Yes, sir. I'm going back to California tomorrow, actually. I'm catching a flight." He goes, "Well, then that's the truth. And of course you can do that because that's the truth." So that meant a lot to me. And that's how Dickie was, man. He was as genuine, and what you saw is what you got, man. He didn't hold back with how he was. He was an honest guy all the way through and through. True blue guy. And he supported me on changing the lyric because he said that was the truth, and that was cool.
Yeah. Well, you might have just answered it with his, like you said, being genuine, but like what's probably the biggest thing you learned from Dickie Betts once you got to know him outside of, completely separated from guitar playing and music?
Well, I learned, and I watched the man, be a survivor and a fighter and just have a true strong spirit. For 24 years that we were family, and I saw him go through a lot of ups and downs, and took a couple spills, and even up to the last 6 months of his life, he broke his hip, but he didn't let that stop him, man. He was up and walking around with that walker and giving it his all, and he never complained. So I learned that you just got to keep on swinging and just keep fighting the fight and pushing along. And he was definitely a strong fighting type of personality and a strong spirited person. And that was inspiring to me.
Love to hear it. Well, I do have a guitar Tesla question I wanted to ask you. Something I've always been curious about is the outro to Song and Emotion. You've got that kind of clean, little line going that then repeats itself in the intro to Mama's Fool. Like, is there a relation there? Or was that just something you just did to do? Or is there like a relation between those two things for you personally?
Yeah, on the end of Song and Emotion, going into Time, I was experimenting with what's called an e-bow, and it's an electronic gadget that you can put on your strings, and it goes like it's like an electronic bow. And the other thing is for that song, I was tuned down to what's called open D dadgad tuning, where you tune the strings down, so you get this tuning. And so when I came up with that part, it's in that tuning. Well, fast forward a couple years when I was writing the song Mama's Fool, it's also in that same tuning. So being in the same tuning, I just came up with this crazy idea to add that same lick. I don't know where it came from, just out of the blue. I just said, hey, I'm in that tuning. I can play that same lick that I did on that previous record. And it might be kind of cool to make it sound like it was meant to be a medley and to actually create that question that you just asked me to make guys go, hey, why did you do that? So that's it. It was just one of those ideas that popped into my head of segueing from the old album into the new album, but mainly it came about because of that open D tuning and being in the same tuning as the two songs.
Gotcha. Yeah, I figured it was something like that, but I just wanted to ask in case there was a deeper meaning I didn't.
I just stumbled on the idea, and it was just because of the tuning. And then when I stumbled on it, the tempo was the same, and I just accidentally added it to it. And then the light bulb came on, like, hey, this is going to be clever because this is going to make people ask, why did you do that?
Here we are 30 years later.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the previous times you were on with me was right after Eddie Van Halen passed away. And, we talked a bit about that. So I think I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Ozzy. Like, what kind of impact did Sabbath have on you at a young age? And like, because I know you're into a lot of Southern rock, but I'm sure that you're into
I'm
Sabbath
into
at some point
everything.
as
I'm
well.
into Southern rock. I'm into country. I'm into metal.
Yeah.
I'm into rap. I like any genre of music that has a heartfelt soul that you can feel and a genuine thing, you know. But as far as like Sabbath goes, my first memory of Sabbath was my friend Bobby Reed and I. We would skip school and we would take the bus downtown to a record store, and we would look through the vinyl. And I remember the Black Sabbath album with black with the purple writing, Black Sabbath, and it just that purple on the black looked really cool. And we brought it back and we put it on, and it had Sweet Leaf and that riff. And Ozzy was great at using effects on his voice. So like that song, for example, Sweet Leaf starts off with that cough, and I am Iron Man, and all those cool effects that he did. Even on Crazy Train, all aboard, ha ha ha, I. He was really great at creating effects and things that would grab your ear. And, so that along with his lyrics on Crazy Train, and when his solo career happened with Randy Rhoads, it was playing guitar in a very melodic way, mixed with the positive lyric message of, maybe it's not too late to learn how to love and forget how to hate. It's like,
Yeah.
Ozzy just really had it all, man. His lyrics were actually very positive. It's deceiving under the disguise of being the dark Prince of Darkness, but really, he had a lot of light in his lyrics and music.
Obviously, like you mentioned, Randy, he was always surrounded by great guitarists. You were still young enough at that point? Did like Randy Rhoads have an impact on you and your playing in any way?
Oh yeah, big time, man. When I was 15, that was 1981, and I remember standing in line at the record store to buy Diary of a Madman, and I had the Blizzard of Oz album, and we used to play Crazy Train religiously, man. That was our opening song in our band, Earthshaker, and there's even a local television show that we played on here on the Channel 40 News, and we're playing Crazy Train on there. And huge influence, yeah.
Like, yeah, I know, because you had covered Sweet Leaf with Jared James Nichols, right? And then Tesla did
Yeah,
War Pigs on one of the Reel to Reel albums.
yeah.
Like, what are some of your other favorite songs throughout Ozzy's time besides the few you've mentioned?
Well, all of those old classics, and Diary of a Madman and those two Ozzy albums with Randy are masterpiece. Recordings and compositions, musically, classically written, and lyrics. Goodbye to Romance, You Can't Kill Rock and Roll. SATO. All those songs are killer. But when it comes to his later stuff, one song that I've really been grooving on is Dreamer. It's a beautiful song, and again, Ozzy sneaking in those gorgeous lyrics. A positive message, and I really like that song from his later work.
Very cool. Well, man, I'm absolutely loving Reflections and really happy to have you back once again. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Trent, for having me, and you can find Reflections digitally, or you can get the vinyl, and it's about running out. We're not going to make any more of it. It's going to be a limited run. And I appreciate you having me on your show.
There you go, Frank Hannon of Tesla. A huge thank you to John of Prospect PR for his help with that one. And of course, a massive thank you to Frank for taking some time out there to hit me up on Zoom and talk about everything he's got going on with Reflections. And of course, we got some history there about some old Tesla songs and a few other things in there. So it was really cool to have Frank back on the podcast once again. Like I mentioned up front, he's been on here a few times before. This was number 5. So if you want to check out those old episodes, the first time he was on here was episode 183. He came back again on episode 252. Then he was here once again on that episode 292, which was the Eddie Van Halen tribute episode. And then episode 350 was the most recent time prior to now. No, hold on. Did I have? Yeah, episode 350. And now here we are at 436. And plus, Brian Wheat of Tesla was on here on episode 312. So if you're listening because you're a Tesla fan, check that one out. I've also had on, man, so many other artists throughout the years. If you haven't listened to this podcast, if you're a new listener who showed up here because you're a fan of Frank, I appreciate you checking it out. Besides those episodes I just mentioned, we have had on Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, Jeff Tate, the original vocalist of Queensryche, Gene Simmons of Kiss, Bruce Kulick, formerly of Kiss, Rob Rivera of Nonpoint, Elias Soriano of Nonpoint, members of Seven Dust, Three Doors Down, Hellstorm, Breaking Benjamin, Skillet, Motley Crue, Megadeth, Testament, Whitesnake, Living Colour, Dark Tranquillity, Great White, Journey, Def Leppard, Kix. Man, the list is great. The list is long. 435 previous episodes to this you can check out. Over 10 years worth of podcast here from Thunder Underground. TheThunderUnderground.com. You can listen right there. You can also listen most places podcasts are heard. So wherever you're listening right now, hit like, subscribe, follow so you don't miss updates on when new episodes drop. Also on the website, TheThunderUnderground.com, you can find all the socials there. So give a like and a follow on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. All of those have daily content, near daily content coming out. Sometimes, such as, if you're listening to this the day it dropped, yesterday I put out like 5 or 6 reels in one day. Usually it's a 1 or 2 thing, but it was the 5-year anniversary of Eddie Van Halen passing away, so I had a couple Eddie Van Halen things. The news about Rush reuniting and going on tour in 2026 with a drummer in the place of Neil Peart. Obviously, a drummer will be in the place, but all that news came out yesterday, so I made a reel about that. I had on Paulo from Trivium. Is a episode that's coming up very soon, but I released a clip from that. So that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that there's a lot of content comes out that has directly to do with these episodes and a lot that has indirectly to do with these episodes because it's just music news or music history or just fun shit or random shit or whatever. So give a follow on all those so you don't miss that content. And like I said, if you follow because you know you want to hear what's coming up soon, I just mentioned Paulo Gregoletto, the bass player of Trivium, will be on this podcast very soon. Just recorded that one. Also recently recorded one with Billy, the guitarist and co-vocalist of the mighty Biohazard. He's got a lot to say about the brand new Biohazard album and a lot of other great stuff. I also recently recorded an episode with the singer and guitarist of the band Beast Eagle. That will be coming soon. Like I mentioned, the Ozzy Osbourne tribute episode that's going to have several different guests on it. That will be coming soon. One of those guests will be Dizzy Reed of Guns N' Roses. He was just on this podcast about a month ago. He's been on here a couple times as well. So dig back through, check all those episodes out, be on the lookout for these new ones. I greatly appreciate you being here. I greatly appreciate you if you're a brand new listener, if you're a long time listener, or anything in between. So anytime you see a post, like, share, comment, that's a huge help. I can promise you that. All right, once again, a massive thank you to DEB Concerts and Sunset Tattoo, and of course, Prospect PR and the mighty Frank Hannon of Tesla. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.